So welcome back to the Reports Machine MYP or IB MYP Edition. In this video I'm going to show you how to edit the comment bank. If you've stumbled across this video and you've not seen the introduction yet, please have a look at our YouTube channel for the IB MYP Edition introduction, which will sort of get you to this stage. And now we're going to move on and show you how to edit the comment bank itself. So as we showed you in the last video, the sheets do come sort of preset with an example set of comments for grade 7 design. However, you may of course want to change them to suit your subject area. Now the key thing to remember, this is for the IB MYP, so there is 4 criteria, and this can be for any subject. So we could change the class to a maths class or a humanities class or whichever, and you'll just have to edit the appropriate comments for the different criteria and maybe change some mentions of the subject in these comments. So if we look in the comment bank, well actually firstly, when you set up the sheet, you'll have the opportunity to set up the class name and the time period. Once you do, those are actually copied into here. So this reminds you which class you're actually writing these comments for and which time period you're planning to do your reports for. The unit is an optional comment here, and so is the ATL skill. I'll talk a bit about those slightly later on. So as I mentioned before, we have all these comments on this sheet. They build up each individual sentence, and then those sentences are compiled to build your final comment. However, of course you may want to change these, and it's very simple to change them to suit your subject area and to suit your sort of report writing style. Now these have been set up for an example class, a design class, and we've left the comments here just to show you how they might, sort of the kind of language you might want to use and the kind of sort of format you might want to keep it in. So for example, I've got, let's start with this one. So a student has been an outstanding student in design class this term and has achieved the highest final grade. This is for a student that's achieved a level 7 overall, and that would be a nice introduction to their report. If I go into this, you'll notice that student has got an exclamation point on the end, and term has an exclamation point on the end. That is so that if you change the student's name here, for example, we've got Sam and we've got James, any mention of the student name will actually get swapped out to whichever name you put for the student. The last name doesn't actually matter, so this is just for reference in your class. The first name is the only name that's used, so as long as you import the correct first name, these comments will always pick out the name and swap it for any time we reference the student exclamation point. Now as a standard report, of course, just good English, we try to not always say student has done this, student has done this, student should do that, well this. We do use he and she occasionally, and we kind of balance it out through the sentences. So for example, the first sentence always has the student name in it, the second sentence has he or she, the third sentence has the student name, the fourth sentence has the student name, this has he or she, and then the last one has the student name again. So you kind of have to be careful and make sure you're not always saying he or she or just the student name in each one. You'll also notice, for example, here we've got he exclamation point or his exclamation point. Those are again gender specific words which depend on the gender of the student. So when you're typing up your own comments into these boxes, these are live boxes, so when you make a change here, it actually already starts influencing this. So make sure you completed all of them before you do so, and then you will be able to switch out very easily, well automatically actually on the sheet, the gender specific words as well. So you'll never make a mistake with regards to student name or gender as long as you keep to this format. So all you've got to do, and it's probably easier to show you on this example here in the help at the top, is, for example, we've got sort of an example design comment. So Adam has been working very well in his recent mini speaker project. He is a hard-working student, and his efforts have allowed him to achieve a high grade. To improve his grades, he should try to make time to revise future tests. He's exceeding expectations in terms of his communication ATL skill this term. So if you've already got a comment bank, and it's written sort of plain English like this, you'll be able to quite quickly change any mention of the student name to student exclamation point. All the gender specific words, you just need to put an exclamation point after the word, and that is, just make sure you've got the right capitalization. And you do have to write these comments for a male student. Okay, that's just because we've got his and her and him and her kind of that's possible confusion for the system. So we do have to keep these for a male student, and as long as you always use the right gender specific word and add an exclamation point, it will work. The other things, we have the term. So that allows you to switch out term for year, for example, so or any other period of time. So you could mention a quarter, semester, week, month, anything really, and that gets switched out with whichever word is in here. So here we want to keep it as term, but we can add the exclamation point to quickly be able to change it for future reports. So maybe you do a report for at the end of the term, and then towards the end of the year you might want to actually change these terms to years. That means you can just quickly switch it without actually having to retype all the comments, which is quite a nice addition. We also have an option to change the ATL skill name, and that's just ATL exclamation point in capitals. So that automatically swaps any mention of the ATL skill name to whichever you type in here. So say we wanted to change this to organization, as a different ATL skill we're doing for a different project. Let's try this. Say it's a website project or website unit we're working on, and the ATL skill is now organization. When we read through these comments, it will actually start mentioning the organization ATL skill, and it will mention the website unit instead of mini speaker project like it was before. So again, those are sort of optional. You don't have to use these. You can just leave them blank, and then just don't mention don't use this ATL exclamation point or unit exclamation point in your comments. But if you want the ability to quickly switch units and ATL skills, which is useful because often a lot of the comments will be kind of similar for a lot of different projects or units that you might cover. With just slight changes, you can edit them quickly. So to summarize, really, you just need to make sure student exclamation point for the name, and change your gender specific words by just adding an exclamation point at the end of them, and then you've got the option to change these three as well if you like. So I'll show you a quick example on how you could do this. So let's have a look at the ATL skill. So let's change this. So he has exceeded expectations in terms of his ATL skill this term by showing a great attitude towards the subject. So maybe I want to rewrite that all together, and I'll say he has exceeded in terms of his ATL exclamation point, ATL skill by always remembering to include a lot of detail in his exclamation point work. So let's just read that back and make sure we've got, I've just missed a gender specific word there. I'm going to put a exclamation point after that. So I've just edited that comment, and now if we go into the main sort of machine page, and I've already graded this example Sam student with exceeding expectations. So if we read down here, he has exceeded expectations in terms of his organization ATL skill by always remembering to include a lot of detail in his work. So as you can see, it's a live system. So as soon as I change something here, it automatically updates inside the comment builder. It doesn't affect the saved comments, because these, of course, you can refresh as many times as you like, and it will choose at random different first sentences and last sentences, and it can influence some of the other choices as well, depending on the data. But all of these comments you would just need to write carefully for any student, and it will work. So have a go at it. There's a free trial available if you haven't tried it out yet. If you have got yourself the full version system, you can change these comments, of course, as well. If you can't think, and this is another interesting point, if you can't think of 5 different ways of saying 5 different introductions, for example, because it is a fair bit of, it's quite almost, it does get quite difficult to think of more than 5 ways to introduce a report for a level 7 student. If, say, you can only think of 2, we could maybe copy that one twice and copy that one 3 times, which means that the system will, there is a random element. It will either pick those 2, which are the same, or it will pick those, which are the same. So it means that you don't have to write quite as much, but it does also mean that the system is less random for the refreshing here. So in this case, I can show you how that works. I'm just going to give them all straight 7s. So now we've got this: Sam has been an outstanding student. Sam has had a very successful term. So outstanding student, successful term. There is only 2 options. If we kept that with the original 5, we get a lot more variance in the reports, and that looks a bit better when you've got a full class, and especially if you've got a lot of students getting the same kind of level. So you've got some customization in here as well. If you don't want to mention the consistency, you don't have to. You could just write 3 effort comments. So these 3 would be for high effort, these 3 would be for medium effort, these 3 would be for low effort, and it has no other effects. It doesn't mention the consistency because you don't mention it in the comments themselves. It will actually still calculate the consistency and choose one of these, but that makes it somewhat more random in terms of which effort sort of sentence you get. Again, here, if you don't want to have 3 different ways, and if you don't want to use the simplified level, which this also depends on, you could just write in 3 different ways, kind of strength comments for, say, criteria A. These could all be the same again, and it will still work, but the more data you put in, and the kind of better you write the comments here, and if you do these in a fair bit of detail, you'll be able to get much better reports overall. The other thing as well is there is quite a few comments used to make this system. However, if you are changing this from a design system to a maths system, for example, you just need to change any mention of the words design to maths here, and that should already kind of put you in the right kind of, it will already sort of set up the sheet fairly well for you. And between subject years, you only really need to change these and these. You may want to, if you want to mention a unit somewhere, like in this, of course, you can have this switchable unit, but it's only really these comments that you need to change, and take a bit more time changing. The rest of it should make sense across a load of different units, so it will save you time. You could also write this within your departments, which is a great idea. That way you kind of work together, you work out the units, you work out the comments that you're going to mention for the units well ahead of time, so the entire department can have their reports finished in minutes rather than hours and days. So if you have any further questions, please don't hesitate to contact the reports machine directly here. Have a look at the website, and thank you for watching.